Okay. Uh, Minneapolis, Minnesota death metal band Nothingness have this second full length album out today, and it's an interesting one. I think that the way they've tackled subject matter and modus is it's an interesting experiment, and one that does make for good avant-garde, sort of angular, different death metal, which isn't so typically dissonant that it sounds like everything else. Uh, and I think a lot of that boils down less to the subconscious arising and more to the inherent influences that you would expect from someone about their age, which might include, well, a certain age group definitely grew up with like metalcore at their back, and classic death metal coming later on once you kind of built your own taste. And you definitely, I personally feel there's a lot of post-hardcore um, sideswiping a lot of these arrangements, and I know that they're really arising from a blank mind, and it's part of the way they put everything together. Um, but there's definitely a side of me that hears post-hardcore, metallic hardcore, and that kind of thing in the way they've structured things. It sways in a certain way. Uh, Songs refrain and return in a similar way. But otherwise, obviously, there is a big influence from dissonant death metal. There is an influence from, I would say, avant-garde black death metal in general. And that makes for an album that is similar to the previous one, but also obviously a little bit of a paradigm shift has happened here, and they're a little bit more of a serious band. They've all improved, and well, what does that mean when a lot of what this type of band does feels random and emergent and not exactly jammed, but uh, from a from a different state of mind. It manifests in just a little bit more skill working around those edges and taking quicker turns and knowing what works together and what doesn't. So we see a little bit less of the death doom, a little bit more of the sort of sludgier, again, post hardcore kind of feeling arrangements, and less of the chaotic whips between spaces. And it's the kind of thing where I can't remember a bit of it after I've listened to it, but I enjoyed it all the same. And no matter how many times I listened to this, there were definitely a couple of riffs. There was a couple of moments. There's obviously songs on here that are very different from the rest that will stand out when you listen to them. And there's some black metal influences that creep in. There's some guest solos. None of it really reached the points of urgent, memorable, and importance compared to the rest. So it's more that we find something different around every corner, and we find different things maybe I wasn't expecting from Nothingness, but not something that sticks in such a way that this is one for the ages for me. I've listened to so much dissonant black and death metal over the years that it's numbed me to what might be more interesting to others about this type of, core the phrasing of it all. Otherwise, it's a much better sounding record. It goes more places that are more interesting and feel like they're less riding the moment. It's less of that what I call a post metal effect, where uh, drifting from point A to point B sometimes involves a minute of nothing, just kind of floating. And this one gets to the point and it wants to get to its ideas, and I appreciated that about it. So it is kind of an amorphous thing to enjoy. I don't know if it's going to appeal to a ton of people unless you're just interested in something avant-garde, semi-dissonant, with a good amount of variety and the amount of things it says and does within a short space of time. So, uh, pretty interesting record. I give it a moderately high recommendation, more so just with consideration for the general public. You will definitely get the sense that this is a niche, that they're carving a little bit on their own, and I think it'll take a couple more records for them to sort of hit that point of, where they have to either go wacky as hell, or they find uh, songwriting that works with the emergent modus that they use to pull these things out of themselves. So it's an interesting band, and it's something to watch. Uh, but I don't think everyone will be able to pick this up and get something out of it just on a quick listen. So see if you like it. Check out the review, get the details, and make your own decision.